Hello. Ooh, hello.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. We're almost at start time, so we'll just give everybody a minute. We don't want to start early. But if you're here and you're tuned in and you want to introduce yourself in the chat or come off mute and go on video and give it a try, that's also cool. Thanks, Jody. I love it too. Here's the thing. Last year fought breast cancer, did in fact go completely bald. So I'm working back towards the truly epic hair that I used to have. It's not quite what it was, but at this point, like literally happy to have any of it. Never had a curl in my hair. That's chemo curls. So who knew? It's supposed to go away eventually. So I'm trying to really maximize it while I can. Get that big volume going. Awesome. Okay, well, it's start time. So actually just 1 second. I have to go off video. 1 second. Sorry about that. Part of doing conference from home is all of the other creatures that live at home. I had a cat fight brewing right here in this office, right at the start. Great way to start. Great way to start. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to assume that everybody who wants to be here is here and in the right place. This session is Moodle for noobs. So if you're new to Moodle, you're in the right place. If you're not new to Moodle, I would suggest considering one of the other sessions being offered in this time slot, because a lot of this is going to be recap for you. I just want to welcome everybody. I posted a poll to our course space to try and get a sense as to what everybody's role is and how they interact with Moodle. This is a space for noobs though. So if you're like, I don't know where to find that, that's okay. You're in the right place. If you can't find it, there's no reason to worry. We're going to get to stuff like that before too long. So let me introduce myself. Some of you already know me. We go way back, potentially. My name is ShalimarAnderson, and I have been Moodling professionally since 2007. Got my start at Humboldt State University, which is a small public college in extreme Northern California, up where the giant redwoods are, like near where they filmed all of the Ewok locations for Star Wars. It's also the school that the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, RIP, went to. So maybe just a product of going to school at Humboldt is a zaniness and a cartoonishness that resonate with people, perhaps. I started working there as an undergrad. After that, I transferred to the private sector and worked at a few private firms before working with Moodle partners. And I have been with Moodle partner Moonami since its launch. And that's been like 8.5 years, which feels like an eternity to this elder millennial. Moonami, of course, is joining forces with Moodle HQ and My Learning consultants and e-learning experts to become Moodle US. So we're really excited about that. I'm sure there's going to be more talk about that throughout the day. But suffice it to say, I have been doing Moodle for a long time, since like version 1.6 actually was my first version, and have been coming to the MtMoot for, I think this is my 7th year at the Mountain Moot. It's crazy. Oh, I see somebody lives in Mad River. Cool. I'm actually in North Carolina right now. I'm in the Smoky Mountains and enjoying it. So yeah, so anyways, the Mountain Mountaineers have asked me to give you noobs a kind of crash course in what Moodling is. And Moodle and how it works and all that good stuff. So that's what we're going to get into today. We are going to take breaks. So I just want to let you know that we're going to take a couple 10-minute breaks because this is a 3-hour session. And like, I don't want my voice to go completely. I've got a lot of stuff to do. I'll also be hosting a game table tonight and tomorrow night and another session on Friday. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do. And I'm seeing a lot of awesome hellos. Lots of folks from Montana up in here, but Montana isn't the only place represented. Seeing some Oregon. And I saw from some of the addresses of the registrants from here that we've got people from all over. So that's really great. Welcome. Welcome especially to my Montana state government folks. We go way back. So that's pretty cool. Okay, all right, so let's get started. Moodle, what the heck is it? Well, it's a learning management system. We call those LMSs for short. So pretty much everybody is familiar with CMSs, content management systems, such as WordPress. It's a big one, maybe you've heard of it. Well, just like WordPress is for content, pushing out your blog and your content, Moodle is a learning management system. It's for managing your learning and pushing out your learning content. Moodle, of course, is open source. So if you've never heard that term before, you should know that open source means that the code is available for everyone to see. It doesn't cost any money to use Moodle, or does it, right? Because Michelle Moore likes to say free like a puppy, meaning that it's free code, but you have to know how to take care of it. You have to have some place to host it. And if you're going to have traffic there, you know, there are costs associated with Moodle, but you will not be paying like a licensing fee, which is what you would pay to a software provider typically, right? Like you pay for your subscription to Salesforce, or you pay for your subscription to blah, blah, blah. Well, Moodle's not quite the same. It's open source, which means it's free and it's out there and the whole world can have a crack at it, which is also what makes it the most popular learning management system internationally. And I think it also brings a diversity of thought to the Moodle space because educators from literally all over the world with all their different models and modes are coming to Moodle and making it work for them. Like WordPress, one of the true beauties of Moodle is that it's modular. You can plug things into it. So if Moodle doesn't do the thing that you want it to do out of the box, you or someone you know, a coder, can create the functionality that you're looking for and plug it into Moodle, typically. Because of that, it's not only robust, but very extensible. So it can grow with you. You know, you might start with a solution that's very basic, and over time, your business processes might evolve to require changing integrations or changing feature sets. And Moodle is very well suited to be able to grow with your goals. So, a learning management system. It's hard to kind of conceptualize, I think. Sometimes I think about Moodle in terms of, well, Moodle is like a castle. You've got these castle walls and people have to pass through the walls and then they go to their chambers and where they're supposed to go. So when I think of it like that, the issue that I'm trying to kind of address is we know what a content management system does, right? That's your blog posting. You're just going to push it out there like with WordPress. But in a learning space, we have to be concerned with things like security and information, right? So much of what Moodle does is not just allow you or give you the space to create engaging learning content, but it's also guarding users information as they pass through those activities, right? So here in America, we've got FERPA, which is legislation that requires educational institutions to protect sensitive data around user information and the grades they achieve. And those FERPA rules aren't just, to protect students from outside threats, but also from each other, right? Students shouldn't be able to see what another person got on their quiz, right? So there's a lot of security mindedness around how to manage the content in a Moodle space so that only the necessary people are privileged users to see all of that information. So when you've got a framework of what Moodle is, it's at one, this place to build and publish content, and two, a place to keep those things safe. And safety, I don't just mean of information. I also mean, like, if we certify that this person has done XYZ, we want that to mean something. So safety meaning, knowable, checkable in terms of the quality of the content and the one-to-one. This many hours in the online space means yada yada yada. I don't know why I'm explaining this like you guys didn't live through the COVID year, because everybody knows what a learning management system is now. Even if you've never had to work with one yourself, your kids did, right? So a lot of what we saw this last year with COVID was educators in a absolute panic and scramble to get some amount of instruction, augmented, changed for an online delivery. Now, if you've got K-12 kids at home, if you're a parent of a K-12 kid, you probably saw your child's educator scramble into something like Google Classroom, or things that were quick and easy that they didn't have to get an okay or approval from, they could just start using. And then, over time, we started to bounce up against the bounds of those systems. Well, I can't do these things that I really want to do. And that, you really start to feel the friction there when you just go with, when you grab and you're in a panic and you grab for what's closest, you don't always grab the best tool. You just grab everything. If you've got a hammer, everything is a nail or whatever. You just grab the most thing that you have. But Moodle has been in this game for a long time. And say 2007 for me, but it's older than that, right? And we've got a lot of tried and true mechanisms for empowering educators to deliver engaging content. So I guess we should shift our focus from a conceptual foundation of what Moodle is, what it does, and why it's awesome, into maybe popping it open and looking at it together. Are you ready? People on video, give me thumbs up, maybe. If you're ready, you're ready. You're ready to get in there. Got it.
Ready.
Okay, so let me get my screen share going. I'm going to stop my video so I can stop worrying about that yet. And then let's go into a good old-fashioned screen share situation. All right. So this is a Moodle site. Hello, it's Moodle. This one's all branded up for the Mountain Mood. It's got this beautiful green, and I'm not really sure what to call that color, but it's a color. Gold, like a off gold, bronze, I don't know. Okay, this is a Moodle site. It's a Moodle site. It's not what they all look like. Some of them look really different, right? Moodle sites can be intensely customized and branded to suit your institution, which is lovely. Let's just take a quick look at what we're seeing here. So over here to the left, we have this color navigation drawer, and I can expand it if I need to see some words there, if I'm not too sure about my icons. Okay, so we've got home, which we can click. Oh, we're already on home. I should have known that though, because up here in the URL address bar, I can see moodle.mountainmoot.com, and there's nothing after that. So that's like a root spot, right? It's like the highest level. Here on my home screen, I can see, some other stuff going on. I've got the name of the site again. I've got some links, and then I've got sessions. So sessions, think of these as course spaces, right? These are each course categories. So we can get some, beautiful organization around where we put courses. In our academic institutions, course categories very typically follow a semester pattern. You kind of have two primary ways to collect your courses in an academic institution anyway. One is either by term or the other is by discipline. In government or corporate applications of Moodle, you might have this by more likely to be by subject matter than it is by time frame. But I would caution you, even those of you in state and corporate environments, to factor time into your category structure a little bit so that you can have a nice archiving strategy. It doesn't really matter immediately, but 3 years from now, when you've got 1,800 courses that you're wading through every day, like, a stitch in time saves 9. So think about how your archiving strategy as you're beginning to, always have an exit strategy, right? You don't go in there without an exit strategy. So you want to have, or an archiving strategy as the case may be for some of these courses. Because if you're like me, anytime you write something, you hate it 3 years later when you look at it, right? And in a sense, courses that you're creating today, if this is your first time making online courses, 3 years from now, you are going to look back and go, oh boy, don't let anybody see that thing. But yeah, anyways, so we've got categories here with courses inside of them. So I can tell that this Mountain Moot Commons is a course. I've got some visual indicators like an info button, and also the enter it now sign here on these courses to tell me that those are courses, as opposed to the categories like sponsors or sandboxes that I'm seeing here. So this home screen of Moodle is basically just a big list of available sessions followed by my sessions, things that I'm enrolled in. And then we've got some side announcements down here at the bottom of the screen. Up in the upper right-hand corner, we have a place for notifications. Users will get notifications for all kinds of fun things in the system. And that, of course, can be tailored by a site administrator. So that admin person would be able to go in and configure which types of things will send notifications or not. And then, of course, users have the ability to edit their own preferences. So like an administrator can set default preferences and users can set their own preferences for themselves around notifications. The next little window is messaging, so we can send messages to other users in the system. Fun fact, pretty much anywhere a user's name appears, their name is a link that takes them right to their profile. And if you go to their profile, you can send them a message. Once you do, it'll be up here in your messages area. And once you have a new message waiting for you, you'll see a little 1 up here, or 2, or however many are coming at you. So it's clear to see when somebody's trying to get a hold of you. And beyond that, we have our user menu, which will take us to our own profiles. And privileged users in the system will see a lot of information here that isn't just kind of the generic. They'll see, links to go to a user's preferences and alter them on their behalf, or administrator type users can even basically step into this account. So like become or log in as this particular user and then experience the system in their shoes, all of which can be accessed from that user profile for a privileged user. So user menu, some of this stuff follows us throughout, but that home page is set up by the site administrator to showcase whatever they've decided. So in this case, it's Ryan. It's our buddy Ryan Hazen, who's our chief mutineer, and he set this page up to have these things in this specific order. Your Moodle site can be set up by you to have the things, certain items that you desire placed here as well. So that's the home screen. Next, we've got a dashboard. Not all Moodle sites will allow for a dashboard view. It's up to you. Typically, we see dashboards deployed when users are shopping for, signing up for their courses in another system. So for our academic institutions, lots of those have users registering through for classes through a student information system, right? You go and you look for your class and you sign up for it, and then by some magic, Moodle already knows that you've got your classes. It's not magic, it's just a integration. But for most of those people, they don't need to shop for courses in Moodle. So having the dashboard view is really helpful. It shows them just the courses that they're enrolled in that are visible to them, rather than having to sift through all of the courses out there. We don't see the dashboard view used very commonly in use cases where people need to shop for courses in Moodle, right? Which is, I think, why Ryan has us coming to the home screen or featuring the home screen prominently so that we can look over the sessions and add ourselves to them. Okay. Beyond that, in the nav drawer, we have the calendar, which is what it sounds like. The calendar can have site level events, course level events, and user level events. Site level events will display to everybody. Course level events will display to just those users connected with the course, so enrolled in the course somehow, be it as a student or a teacher. And then user level events will display to just that user. So the calendar is handy. And can be used in conjunction with blocks to keep students aware of what's coming due if you're using, a weekly based kind of format, or you're doing some kind of synchronous all together now course. Lots of courses in Moodle are asynchronous, and so calendar dates aren't as meaningful in those situations, right? Because people come in on their time and they complete it on their time. And in those use cases, calendar just isn't as meaningful as it is with others. Then we have some links to certificates, private files, and some added features around IntelliBoard that the Moot has. IntelliBoard is a premium integrating partner that does reporting for Moodle and other LMSs, quite frankly. I don't have permission to show you any of this stuff, but it is a really great tool. And if analytics are critical to your mission, I would definitely suggest checking out their services because they are very nice. The reports that they generate comes from Moodle, but it makes it very visual in a way that Moodle reports are just not quite there yet, So that's a lot of fun. All right, so generally speaking, we've got the lay of the land here. We can see what's going on. We also got some blocks over here with our little expand it, collapse it button. So I hope everybody has already started earning coins because this Moodle site is gamified and you get coins for all kinds of fun stuff that you do. And also, you can view sponsor information here. So that is basic navigation. Oh, I hope that was making sense for everybody. But if you've got a question, don't hesitate to post it into chat. I cannot see chat right now because I'm sharing my screen, but I will get to it. All right, so let's get into a course next. So the first thing I want to do is get into our session course. It's called MoodleForN00bs. I do believe that everybody has a sandbox though. So if you're able to log into this site, you probably have a sandbox space that you have teacher level capabilities with. So you'll be able to turn editing on. You cannot turn editing on in my course. I'm sorry. Is anybody having, everybody can get into the space. Everybody can log into their sandbox. If you don't have a sandbox course here, can you please let me know in chat, because being able to turn editing on and tinker as we go is going to make this a whole lot more enjoyable for you. And while everybody's checking that out, I'm just going to look at this question from Beth. Is there a way to see your courses in calendar view, i.e. chronological order with the dates and times? Beth, that's a great question. So to that, I would just say on your dashboard, there are different, remember Moodle plays well with plugins. So a type of plugin that Moodle has or can play with is called a block. And when you've got your dashboard set up, you can actually have different blocks here to display your courses. And I believe there's one that's works on like a timeline, like a time-based thing. So that would be more connected to the calendar. Later in this session, I'm going to show everybody how to look for plugins that might be good for their, sites by accessing the plugins directory. So we'll look at that. But I think, Beth, that there's a plugin out there that might approximate what you're looking for sure. Okay, everybody has their sandbox. I'm hoping so. Looks like we've got a link to that sandbox category in the chat here. So go ahead and get in there if you can. So once you're in your course, it's not going to have anything in it. It's probably going to be pretty empty, but we're going to have to use our imagination here. Once you're in the course, what's going on? Okay, well, first of all, everything over here has changed a little bit, right? That navigation drawer that we were looking at before has grown its heart by 10 sizes to accommodate all of the special course level navigation stuff that we need. So I can see participants, badges, certificates, competencies, and grades. Also in my course, I can see some basic controls. And at this point, I have to apologize. If you hear a sound coming from my microphone, my elderly pug is just decided to start snoring at the top decibels right underneath my desk. So I don't have the heart to wake her up though, because she's very elderly. Okay, so yeah, course, here we are. We've got controls up here in the upper right-hand corner. So the first thing that I need to do here with my new course is start to get a sense of what kind of content I can make. And you've probably already guessed and clicked the big button that says turn editing on, but in case you were able to resist the temptation, now's the time. Turn that sucker on. We are going to do some editing. Once I do that, we see a message that says, oh, you can now drag and drop files. Also, what happens is look at all these different buttons I've got now. That's pretty cool. I've got crosshairs where I can move things around. So I'm just going to move something around. Ooh, the Mountain Mood people are going to be so mad at me. Okay, so those crosshairs will allow you to drag and drop. Very cool. And then the pencil icon, which is the next one your eye sees, is a way to rename something. I am like a OG status typo master who always seems to put typos into titles, especially. So the pencil icon really helps me with that. So you can type in the new title and then hit enter, and voila, the changes they are made, your new title awaits. Okay, and if you follow your eye on over, we can see the editing drop down. The editing drop down has all kinds of tools relational to the thing that it's associated with. So check this out. Meet the goofball. If I follow my eye, and actually if you stay on it, it kind of makes it a different color. The contrast of that might be hard to see. So like, all of that kind of contrasty stuff can be controlled from your site administration panel. But basically this edit dropdown associates with this. Meet the goofball. So relational to meet the goofball, I can edit the settings of this particular activity. I can indent it for visual purposes. I actually did that once already today to make it look the way it does. If you have something indented, you can move it back to the left, but I don't like that, and I'm gonna need to change it immediately. All right, next we can hide something. What does that even mean? Well, if you try it, it'll tell you, it says hidden from students. It means that student type users cannot access this resource at the moment. Oh, but friends, there are so many other ways that aren't specifically hiding something to get to be a little tricky in what we're doing with our activities and resources. Kind of can't wait to tell you, but I have to wait to tell you. So hiding makes it invisible to students, still visible to other teachers, to non-editing teachers. Privileged users in this space would still be able to see it. Students are not privileged users though, so they cannot. I'm going to show it again. Then we can duplicate something. This is particularly helpful if you find yourself, making a lot of the same type of resources in a course. Especially if you're changing the settings for every one that you make, oh, that can get overwhelming quickly. So duplication, quite nice. Then we can assign roles in the context of this particular activity. And I just want you to put a pin in that right now because it is just some next level stuff. We will be talking about roles and contexts where they can be assigned later. So right now, just pin it. We're not going to talk about it right now. We're just going to pin it. And then of course we can delete. What happens when you click delete accidental? Well, honey, you get a warning. It says, are you sure you want to do that? And if you accidentally click yes, it's gone. It's going to be gone. It's going to be gone forever. Right? That's right, right? It's gone forever, right? Does anybody know? It's obvious that the answer is no, it's not going to be gone forever. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. It's not going to be gone forever because very shortly after a little something called cron processes, it's going to appear in this upper course menu under something called the recycle bin. Oh, booyah, and I'll be able to recover it. Now, items that you delete in your course will remain in your recycle bin for about 7 days. Although check with your administrator because that might be different for your Moodle site. But yeah, 7 days to get that sucker out of the trash before it's gone forever. So it's not gone forever yet, but it will be if I don't take action. That is awesome. Can I just say, like, as a little note from someone who's been doing this a long time, the recycle bin is only like a couple years old. And before that, every time somebody deleted something, we were having to go in and pull backups from it was not fun. So congratulations to you on coming to Moodle at this illustrious time when the recycle bin has all of our backs. Because before that, it was definitely a pain in the keister. Okay. So that's the editing dropdown that appears with every activity and resource that you add to your course. Activities and resources are those kind of fundamental building blocks that create your course for the users. That's your content. So does anybody want to venture a guess as to how I might add an activity or resource to a Moodle course? If you guessed the giant link that repeats add an activity or resource, you've won. Ding, 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 ding. Awesome. Yeah. So click the button that says, hey, click me. And you will get a menu of all of the activities and resources that are available on your site and are here to be added to your course space. Holy smokes, that's a ton of them, dog. But guess what? That's not even exhaustive because, again, I just like to remind you that Moodle is all about them plugins and activity modules and resources. Yeah, that's a plugin. So there's like hundreds and hundreds more out there on the plugins directory, which we're going to look at soon. But let's focus on what we've got here. There's still so many. If it's too many, if it's overwhelming, you should have some tabs to help you kind of pare it down so that you can look at them by type, activities versus resources. Activities being different from resources in the sense that activities require some amount of interaction from your learners. Sounds pretty basic, but let's think about that a little bit harder, okay? Activities. Well, first of all, they're going to create an entry in the grade book more often than not, right? So they're gradable. More often than not, students are having to click multiple times and move things around, drag stuff, type stuff, all that kind of good interaction. And so we have more ways to track them, more insight into what exactly they're doing while they're participating with this activity. And then resources would be those things that we're kind of just tacking up to the wall, hoping that it sticks. Once I heard somebody describe Moodle classrooms as like, think of it like your actual classroom that you teach in, right? Think back to your third grade teacher, right? Or fourth grade. And remember how she had zany stuff all over the walls and, early infographic posters and whatnot that, is like the life cycle of a cell or whatever, I don't know. Well, your Moodle class is not dissimilar. You can make it your own. Yes, your institution might have some rules around branding or how the landscape works here. But with resources, you can push more content out. So even if your institution is like, no, you can't change your theme in the course, because that's a definite restriction, especially in the corporate space. Well, how do you bring those zany and interesting visual pieces, or the equivalent of those science posters on the wall, into Moodle? Well, you could do that with the page resource or other things that you're kind of sticking up for students to consume, but not necessarily click through, type in, or interact with in a trackable way. So there are a ton of activities and resources here. And because these are plugins, I am actually not totally versed in every one of them, which is always like, I don't know what a woo clap is, but we're going to learn about it together. And the rest of them, I'm going to give you a quick explanation of what they do. But you'll notice that here in underneath each of them, there's a little eye icon, which takes you to a very helpful little breakdown of what the thing does. There's also a star. This is to allow you to, you've got some favorites, put them up there. It's basically a way to favorite ones. So let's do a very quick run through of what some of these are. So assignment is a way for you to collect submissions from your users. It doesn't have to be a writing submission, although it certainly is very often. It can be a picture that you want them to upload, whatever it is. On the Moodle side of things, what happens with assignment is your students will upload their submission, and then Moodle will convert that submission into an image or something, and then you can mark it up. So you can get your virtual red pen and strike through lines, or give notes, all types of meaningful feedback right here within the interface. This is another one of those congratulations if you're just coming to Moodle, because 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, maybe like 7 years ago, you had to download every submission, grade it on your own computer, and then re-upload it to Moodle. And that was a pain in the neck. And we don't have to do that anymore. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. The last 5-7 years, we've had this really awesome assignment tool that allows for online conversion and markup. So that's a very popular one. Next, we've got attendance. Attendance is a way for you to mark attendance. But is it just a way for you to mark attendance, or is it something more? Well, I'm here to tell you it is something more. You can actually change the statuses for attendance. So the standard is present, late, excused, absent, but you could make it like blue, green, yellow, red, and use it to track the different colored t-shirts of the people on video when you meet. Or, it could be any kind of metric tracker for every student. It doesn't just have to be around actual attendance. And when you create any of these activities, it's not just called assignment 1, right? You choose the name of the activity. So even though it's an attendance module, you could call it t-shirt colors or habit tracking or whatever it is you want to do. Big Blue Button is a great tool that does basically what we're doing now with Zoom. It's a web conferencing tool, lives in Moodle. So people have to authenticate, log into Moodle and access their course where the big blue button link is, but where they can get to the big blue button session. It allows for whiteboarding and chat and uploading your PowerPoint presentation. It's a really great tool. It's also open source, which means that it costs a whole heck of a lot less than some of those big players like WebEx for Adobe Connect, for example. Chat is a beautiful, I get nostalgic when I think about chat because it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a chat room where people who are there at the same time can have like a, real-time conversation through text with one another. I actually met my spouse in a chat room, an MSN chat room about punk rock in the year 2000, maybe 1999. Kids these days do not know what a chat room is, but honey, my whole life is because of the brilliance of chat rooms. How do we see this used in Moodle? Great question. I most frequently see it as a replacement for like instructor office hour in our academic institutions, or sometimes it's like a tech support hour if you're launching a new course in a more corporate environment. So it's good for that, for sure. Choice is a single question, a poll. You can ask a question, provide different options. I love the choice module because you can limit the number of respondents who can select any given option in your poll. So once 5 people, let's say, choose an option, it then drops off the list of options. So it's not just a way to poll your students, but it's also kind of a cool way to like schedule course presentations. So like if you have, 3 groups can present in any given course on any given day in the course, and you've got 16 groups to get through, well, you might need to have them choose which session, and only 3 can can get one because we'll run out of space that day. So that's cool. Then we've got custom certificate, which is a way to build a printable certificate that users in your course can learn or can earn. Custom certificate is a popular one, but it's not the only one. We're also seeing a lot of popularity around the workplace certificate module. And yeah, we're going to get into this in a second, but you have the ability to control when someone can access a particular activity or resource. So you can set your course up to ensure that the certificate that they earn cannot be earned until XYZ conditions are met. So that's something to keep in mind. Next, we've got the database activity, which I have to admit, I slept on this one for a long time. But in today's session, we're joined by my colleague, Sarah Ashley, who is actually giving a whole presentation on the wonders of the database module. And I've had a chance to see some of the magic and wizardry she does with that stuff. And I'm here to tell you, you should sit in on that because it's wildly cool. Michelle Moore of my learning consultants even set one up that I worked through today, which was like a Mad Libs like workplace use case generator that I think she's using in her session happening right now. And it was very cool. So database is a collaborative tool. I'll say that. It's got the ability to have people come in and add new entries. And it does so much more than that. So I even feel nervous talking about it because Sarah is our authority and she's here. So it's very cool. Check that session out. Next, we've got external tool. I like to say that the external tool is like a wormhole connection. Listen, it's pretty likely that the majority of people here are nerds on some level. So like, I'm just going to assume a base level of nerdery that all of you know what I mean when I say wormhole connection. If I have mistook you for a nerd and you don't want to be known as a nerd, come tell me so later or whatever. But Everybody knows what a wormhole is. External tool is a way for you to establish a wormhole connection between your Moodle course and some learning artifact or another Moodle course on somebody else's Moodle site somewhere. And then users can click the link to be taken through that wormhole, do the learning activity someplace else, and then when they're done, sucked back through the link along with their completion data or scoring information, as the case may be. So external tools, very cool. Next is feedback. Feedback is a way for you to write a survey with your own questions. You'll notice that down here on the list, survey is also here. Here's the thing though, the survey tool has a set list of questions and it's meant to be an end of course evaluation. It's a course evaluation survey. Humans are terrible at writing questions, as it turns out, especially for surveys. We have the ability to really just broadcast to the respondent what we want them to say in the way that we write questions. So the survey tool down here is scientifically proven to be not so leading in terms of course evaluations. And that's great for a course evaluation, but if you've got a survey that you want to take of people for XYZ that's, you know, specific to your use case or your work environment or whatever, and you need to write the questions yourself, well, feedback is your, you know, best friend, essentially. Some folks prefer to do the questionnaire because it does the same kind of function. So feedback and questionnaire, it's kind of like 6 in one, half a dozen of the other. Okay, next is forum. Forum is the backbone of Moodle functionality. Moodle is built on a social constructivist model. What does that mean? Well, if you don't, you don't have to remember all this, but basically social constructivist is like, you know what? Here's an idea. Maybe students don't just learn from teachers. Maybe students also learn from each other. And I don't want to blow your mind, but maybe teachers also learn from students, which when that idea was introduced, it was like, what? Burn the witch, pretty revolutionary idea. But Moodle, is like, yeah, no doy, of course, that's how it works. So forums and social interaction really are the backbone of Moodle functionality. This one type of activity actually is misleading because there are several types of forums within this one activity. So you can have a standard forum where people can just like blah, blah, blah at each other as much as they like. Or you can have my favorite, which is a question and answer forum. And a question and answer forum, the instructor posts the initial prompt or question, and then students have to post their reply to that one question. But there's a twist. Students cannot see what their peers are posting to that forum until they make their own post. What? That's a way that we can help ensure that people are doing their own cognitive labor, which is like the name of the game. So forums are super cool. Definitely add a forum as soon as you can. Next, we've got glossary. Glossary is a great way for you to define some terms. Are you working for the government? Do you have a lot of acronyms? Would you like to not drive new people insane? Well, consider a glossary because those acronyms are rough. We at Unami have been working with government agencies for a long time, and all y'all got your own acronyms, and it's a sea of chaos and madness for people like me. I also love glossary because glossaries can be used to create other types of activities, like game-based activities. We're not seeing any of those here, but I'm going to show you that plugins directory soon to show you what I mean. So glossaries are what I consider a foundational type of activity, like, and applicable to nearly all use cases, quite frankly, because jargon be jargoning, Okay, next we've got group choice. This will, I did not mean to do that. Group choice will allow us to set up groups or have users choose which group to belong to. let's get back to that activities. H5P. Now there has been some chatter in the chat about H5P and people are like, what is it? What the heck is it? What the tarnation is it? And other people are like, it's the coolest. Those people clearly not beginners, not newbies. It's okay. Everybody's welcome here. H5P. H5P is a whole vibe, okay? It is a project that is being developed kind of like Moodle by a community of international people who want to have good times in their learning spaces. Here's the deal. If you've ever, listen, we've all been in those training courses that are like SCORM based. SCORM is an acronym. I'm going to put it in chat, SCORM. So like if you've ever taken a course that is like built with Articulate Storyline or Adobe Captivate, they're like very beautiful and interactive, and there's usually narration and all kinds of stuff going on. Problem is, those software programs that create that are spendy. And so for organizations where a budget is a concern, which like pretty much every organization that uses Moodle, because Moodle is open source, so it doesn't have the licensing fees, see earlier explanation of the cost effectiveness of Moodle. But basically, a lot of our clients really just don't have the funds to drop $1,200 per license on these big fancy tools that make interactive SCORM packages. Moreover, SCORM packages are kind of lame because once you make it, the only way to fix it is to go back to the SCORM package authoring tool, change the whole thing, and then republish it and then re-upload it to Moodle. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, just like, good on you. Pat yourself on the back for not having to get into that mess. But it is a mess. So in the outcry for tools that are accessible and easy to use and free comes H5P. And H5P is host to a myriad of different types of content that you can bring into your Moodle course with just a few simple clicks. Oh my God, look at all these different types of activities. What? All of these things are implied by this one thing. So this one activity type will allow you to build any of these activity types. Sound too good to be true? It's not. Pause for questions. Any questions so far? All right. I can't go through every single one of these with you. I know we have 3 hours, but that is just not enough time, honey. These are big deals. And I'm going to show you my favorite. Interactive video is one of my favorites because, and I have to remember to mute this. Check this out. This is a YouTube video that somebody else made. Like, I didn't have to make this YouTube video. I just like grabbed the URL. Now I'm going to present it to my students and I'm going to make it interactive. All right, we're doing the whole thing about healthy eating. What? A multiple choice quiz? Please identify the strawberry. Okay. Great. Nailed it. Let's keep going. All right, we got some blueberries. We got some strawberries. Uh-oh, what's been added so far? Was I paying attention? It was strawberries, it was blueberries. I just said it out loud. Let's check. I nailed it. Oh, yeah, let's keep going. Okay, now we got some yogurt or something, some milk, cookies. I'm not sure. I mean, if that's healthy eating, honey, I'm about to be a fitness superstar. I can eat cookies all day. Okay, strawberries and blueberries. You see what I'm saying? Interactive video. You don't have to make the video. You just have to find one that's good and then engage with your students as we watch it, right? Think of this as it's like almost like your own Mystery Science Theater 3000, but the goal is learning. That's the interactive video. Those are wildly popular with our clients. Another that's very popular is course presentation. And this is the one that reminds me most of the SCORM content that I've seen done. So this is, the same kind of deal. We've got a linear path to follow here, right? What color do ripe cloudberries have? I've done this a million times and I'm think it might be pale red. No. Okay, where are they from? Sweden. I feel like I always get this one wrong. I got it right this time. Huzzah. Okay, so that was my first little task. I can keep going. There's more, information, interactive points. You can embed videos, all kinds of stuff in here. So these, I like to think of these as like the tutorial at the beginning of a particular module or something. These are great for those. All right, now they have branching scenarios, one of their featured ones, but I want to blow your mind. I'm gonna blow your mind. I'd rather just do a little bit of mind blowing. Image juxtaposition. All right, know a lot of you folks are from the government. Let's actually try a different one. All right, check this out. This is the same exact location through two different lenses, right? Okay, river, lower, higher, I don't know, not too bad, kind of the same, right? So I like the image juxtaposition, super fun to have a before and after. Imagine a pilot's cockpit where you're sliding side to side of, you could have everything labeled on one side and not on the other, kind of cool. Another one I super, super duper love is 360 virtual tour. Stop it. Okay, we're out in something. We're in the Roman theater. All right, that's fine. But like, can you imagine if you were in an actual workspace? Like, oh, look, you're in the mechanics room, or you are, somewhere that people are actually going to be for their on the job training. And guess what? Yeah, you can get a 3D camera and do it up proper, but let me show you something. Oh, 1 second here. I haven't upgraded this site in at least a year, so it's kind of an old version, so pay no attention to this. I also teach at a pottery school. And I'm not moodling, I'm playing in the mud. So I started volunteering with a pottery school, and I created a course and look at this. Okay, I got an interactive tour. Do I have a 3D camera? Absolutely not. Of course not. Why would I have a 3D camera? I'm just a person. But I do have an iPhone with panoramics, right? So this is my little pottery school, and this is what happens when you come in the front door. And there's all kinds of stuff going on, and there's nothing is labeled. So I was always confused. So I took a 3D panoramic, sat with somebody who'd been volunteering longer than I, and then just labeled where everything was so that I could find it again. That's just one part of it. Look at this. Other part of the room. Look at that. That's all of this was done with an iPhone. But there's more to the room. Click the button, takes me to the other half. Ran out of room on Pano, and I had to have the other, it's no big deal. You guys, this is pretty cool. Think of how this can change training around workspaces. I am titillated by this particular type of content. I love it. I can't hold it back. I love it. So that's H5P. Get excited because H5P is exciting. Okay, there's two of them. What? Crazy, right? This is kind of a story. So sit back, settle in, story time. And we're not going to go into it too hard, but basically, H5P, the organization, built their own plugin for Moodle, and they maintain it. And then Moodle was like, this is so cool. We're going to put this in native. So there's now native support for H5P content. That's why you see two here. One of them is the one that H5P created, and the other is the native support. We've learned that having both on one site can actually lead to cuckoo crises because they both try to use the same storage area in the database. So, note to those people who are in administrator or IT roles, you're going to want to choose one or the other and disable the one that you're not using. All right, I'm gonna skip hot question because I have not played with it, but I'm sure it's cool. It's like a voting thing. That's neat. Lesson is our next. Lesson is very similar to the branching activity that H5P offers, where everybody starts at the same location, but then depending on what they choose, they might land in all kinds of different spots. I like to think of it as a choose your own adventure. It can be very linear though, point A to point Z, no choices, no off ramps into other zones, but that's no fun. So I definitely like to see lots of endpoints and different pathways. Think of it also as a way to provide remediation for learners who might need it explained a different way or whatever it is you're trying to present, having a different take on it. Can I provide the link to H5P that I use? Absolutely. Here we go. Okay, next is questionnaire. We talked about that a little. It's another way for you to collect a survey wherein you write the questions yourself. Quiz is central to Moodle functionality. Quiz is our assessment tool. So it says quiz, but it can be a full-blown final exam, a cumulative final exam with 100 questions on it. It doesn't have to be just like a little, pop quiz. And it's not like that. Quiz question types are another plugin type. So it is not likely that we have an exhaustive list of the types of questions here in this Moodle site because there are so many. It's really common to see multiple choice, true, false, short answers. Most question types can automatically grade, except for the ones that really do require human intervention, such as essay questions, right? So that's something. Quizzes also have a question bank, which allows you to establish categories for your questions and have a lot of organization therein, which is awesome. Because imagine this, you are a professor teaching, introduction to biology. And module 1 is all about cells. Module 2 is all about skeletal systems, or I don't know, right? Well, if you have your quiz questions arranged by what module they're in, so you have a category for module 1 type questions, a category for module 2, then at the end of the course, when you're doing your final exam, you can say, hey, bring in 3 random questions from this category and another 3 from this one. So you can be sure that your cumulative quiz is going to take an appropriate number of questions from each category and be a little different for every user who takes it. If you were to try to do that for a cumulative exam where you're just like, take 50 random questions from this massive category where all my questions are collected, it could skew really heavily to one module or the other and leave out entirely other modules. So, organization is important with stuff like that. And Moodle's tools around quiz banks are incredibly helpful. There's also really handy ways to import multiple choice quiz questions into your system without having to do a ton of legwork for formatting. So multiple choice questions are obviously a favorite. Next, we've got the Score'Em package presenter. So I think of Moodle as the stage and the curtains, and also the ticket booth out front. But the Score'Em package is the players, the costumes, all of that stuff. So Moodle has a stage for your Score'Em package, but is very rarely capable of diagnosing problems with the production. You know what I'm saying? It's usually the traveling Score'Em team that's the root of an issue there. We've got scheduler, which allows for you to establish an appointment and have learners sign up for those times. So this can be an office hour scheduler or perhaps an in-person event scheduler. Then we've got simple certificate. Simple certificate is another, just like custom certificate or the workplace certificate module. It used to be very popular. We've been shying away from it lately because it could use some work. Subcourse I've seen, but for the life of me, can't remember. It takes a final grade from a different course and factors it into your grade from this course. So that's something. We've talked about survey. Wiki is not dissimilar to database in the sense that it's a collaborative tool that your users can add to. However, it's not as intuitive for users, and it's really based on, like they get a big blank page, whereas with database, there are like fields to collect is my sense. I don't want to speak out of turn, but they're both collaborative, and users can add new things to them, but Wiki is a bit more free form if you ask me. I don't know what WooClap is. Let's look together. This module provides a WooClap interactive platform integration to Moodle. I am sure we will learn more about that as the conference wears on, but I can't speak to it. So don't ask me any questions. I won't answer them. Next is the workshop module, which is underappreciated. I'm actually getting my MBA right now through an online school that uses the workshop module really extensively. So I'm getting a lot of firsthand experience with this tool from the learner perspective, and I can tell you it's actually pretty radical. Workshop is a way for you to have learners submit an initial draft and then give feedback to their peers for their peers' initial draft. So it's like a phased thing. Phase 1 is like everybody turn in your first draft. Phase 2 is everybody give meaningful feedback to 3 of your peers. And then the next phase would be potentially another round of the draft. And you can assign grade at each phase, right? So you get grade for the quality of your first draft. You also get a grade for the quality of your feedback, yada, yada, yada. So really cool. I was an English major as an undergrad. If only my teachers were using the workshop module then, I would have been able to cut a lot more class than I already did. Huzzah. All right, those are the activities. Any questions about activities in general before we look at resources? There's far fewer resources, so try not to be overwhelmed here. Any questions about all of that stuff? Alberto says, WooClap is pretty cool, especially for live audience feedback participation. Well, man, I wish I would have looked at it before our session because I love feedback and participation. C'est la vie. All right, no other questions. So I'm going to move into the resources. Again, resources do not create an entry in the gradebook. Resources don't have the deep level tracking that we can get with other activity types. And they're mostly just, content that you're pushing out there. A lot of reference materials come into the course as resources. So first up, we have book. But book is what's inside of a book. A book is a collection of pages, right? So we also have page. So the cool thing is about page is that you can copy and paste the entirety of like one of the great works of fiction, War and Peace, perhaps, into one Moodle page. But your students will hate you and they'll go on Rate My Professors and give you a terrible, terrible rating if you do this to them, because nobody wants to scroll through War and Peace or Crime and Punishment or whatever, right? It's like, I need a bookmark, bud. I need chapters. So if you got a lot of content, more than really fits on a page without too much scrolling, then consider adding your pages to a book. Books will give your users chapter navigation and whatnot so that they can find where they left off easily. Same kind of deal transfers to file and folder. So pages to book, what file is to folder. If you've got just a couple files that you want them to download, all right, add them individually. If you've got more than 5 files that you want users to download, consider putting a folder. So instead of 5 links on their course page, they just have the one. It's just a housekeeping thing. We want to try and keep the cognitive load down. We want to try and keep things tidy and neat. Next, we have IMS content package. This is what we use when you're migrating from an LMS that doesn't have any kind of compatibility or migration tools with Moodle. I see it used, I think, in the over a decade that I've been doing this, I've only used IMS content packages like 3 times. So like, you're probably fine if you never have to touch it. I'm going to talk about URL next. URL is a great way to link students to another place. When you have a URL that you're adding in this way, you have the ability to say, hey, open in a new window or embed in this window. Some websites allow you to embed them within your Moodle site. And that's pretty cool because it lets your students, it lets it so your students don't have to like leave Moodle to follow the link, which I think is pretty helpful. Sometimes, yeah, that's not the only way to add a URL to your course, because you can also do it with label, although that's not like best practices. Label is kind of the odd man out. Every other thing on this list is going to create in your course a link. See, these are all activities and resources, right? And every one of them is a link to the thing. The odd man out is label, which is not inherently a link. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere. So for example, helpful resources, this is a label. It's just some words that I put up for, you know, instructional design sensibilities, and labels are that. But labels can do so much more than that. So like, check this out. I'm just going to add a label. Let's start adding some content. Here's a label. All right. There's no, usually there would be a place to put a name that would be the link. Labels don't have that because they're not going to do that. So what can a label be? Labels can be images. So what am I doing? Narrate what you're doing, Shalimar. Some of these people have never seen Moodle before. Get it together. All right, adding a new label. This is a WYSIWYG content editor. WYSIWYG is an acronym. It stands for what you see is what you get. This one is called the Auto Text Editor. That's ATTO. It's got all kinds of tools for me. The very first one says expand, give me more tools. One of the tools herein is this insert an image icon. So I'm clicking that. And I don't have a URL, and instead I want to browse repositories, see what's out there to be seen. From here, I could choose to upload an image, but instead I'm going to come to Wikimedia, which has Creative Commons media items. And I'm going to search for something cool like, I don't know, we just had the 4th of July. Usually the Mountain Mood is like right on top of 4th of July. So I'm just going to search for 4th July. Oh, look at that. Fireworks and stuff. Pretty. I'm going to choose this one. When I select it, it says make a copy or link to it. I'm going to make a copy just because, and I'm going to select this file. My next screen will have sizing information. That feels a bit large for me. So I'm going to knock it down to 750 and see how that feels. Okay. Definitely want to describe this one for people who may be using screen readers. So this is like a big firework of red, blue, and white against the dark black sky. Queen of typos. Okay, and then I just say save image. I say save image, and there it is. Okay, voila, we have ourselves an image. Okay, so then I'm going to save it and go to course. Ooh, I don't like the way that's sitting. I'm going to have to make some changes. Click edit, edit settings, come back in. I'm going to highlight the image and I'm going to expand my menu and I'm going to say, make it centered. And then I'm also going to say, oh, you know what? Alignment bottom, let's make it middle. Save image, save and return to course. Maybe that's a little better. Let's turn editing off and see what we see. Okay, all right. There it is. It's large. It's in charge. I'm going to turn editing on. You know what? I want it to be at the very, very tip top. Okay, that's a label, right? It's not all. It's not all. It's not all. Watch this. Okay, I'm going to turn editing on, right? Now, earlier when I was showing you the edit dropdown, this guy right here, I was like, oh, hide it from your students. And now it's hidden from your students. And if you were particularly observant, you notice that once I did that, a new thing became visible here in my menu, and that's make available. I'm going to click it. Now it says available, but not shown on course page. So if I were a student, I wouldn't see this at all, but it's also not barring me from entry, right? Because things that are hidden do not allow students to participate with them, whether that's activities and resources within a course or courses themselves that are hidden, right? Students can't see, can't enter hidden courses. But when I make it available, they're not blocked from entry, but we need to provide some alternate route for them to get here. So I'm going to right click on this sucker, copy link address, and then I'm going to come back up to my label, edit settings. Then I'm going to highlight the image. I'm going to use my WYSIWYG tools to link it. Create link. Oh my gosh. Save and return to course. And now what happens? I'm going to turn editing off. Oh, wait. Did you see it? Did you see it? Watch this. Huh. Oh, new boot goofing. This image is now a link. This link takes users to poll. But you don't have to take my word for it. Bada bing, bada boom. Look it, now I'm in the poll. It's happening. So I know that I'm kind of making a big deal out of this, but label is like truly the most multi-purpose tool in your toolkit. Yes, your content is primarily activities and resources that your students are using to learn, but your label is your little tool. That's your little back pocket of instructional design, right? You're going to be able to use that to make this course look and feel the way you want to. You're going to be able to use that to hide things like little Easter eggs, right? Because everybody likes going on the hunt, right? That's some cool stuff. Okay, so far today, in our hour 15 minutes that we've been at it, we have generally looked at Moodle. We have come into a course, turned editing on, made some changes to the content that was there, and figured out how to add new content. We haven't added much content together though, so I want to take a break, 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to start adding some activities to the course space. So break time. Back in 10. So that'll be 55 after the hour. All right, welcome back. Okay, hope you had a nice break. Um, I'd like to start this kind of segment with just some notes. So we just looked at something really cool to do with a label. And um, the one thing that I want to say is that in this introduction to Moodle, I am focused more on attempting to show you what is possible, not necessarily what you should be doing, right? Every use case is going to be different, and accessibility should be at the forefront of most of our minds, especially those of us who are government bodies. Everybody, really, though. So, I implore you to take all the like weird stuff, like the label that's a link and stuff like that, take that with a grain of salt and keep a mind toward accessibility as we move forward. Moodle has some really great tools to help you with that, and I think there are going to be some sessions at this Moot to try to kind of shed some light on that if accessibility is not something that you've worked with a ton. So yeah, just because it's possible doesn't mean it's the best, but I also want to inspire you to try new things and think outside the box. So, you know, there's that. Okay, so when we left off, we talked about all of the different types of activities and resources that we can add on this site, keeping in mind that there's a whole host of activities not represented here that are contributed by the Moodle community. That having been said, I'm gonna add a forum with you now. So let's do that. I click add an activity or resource, and then I find forum. Once I click on the little icon, it takes me right to the page with the form I have to fill out to add the forum. So the forum is going to be called My First Forum. It's not, though. Spoiler alert, it is not. Okay, next we can give it a description. We do have the option to display the description on the front page. So this is my description. Just so that you can see what that looks like. Then we choose what type of forum we want to use. So earlier I mentioned that the Q&A forum is my absolute favorite, but there are other types, such as each person posts one discussion. I guess that's what I'll do this time. Beyond that, I have several areas of settings to work through. Don't get intimidated. It's all super easy, and in no time, you'll be able to hunt and peck for what's really important. So to do us a favor, though, I am going to click expand all up in the upper corner, since we're going to kind of go through these right now. You won't necessarily have to look at every setting for every time you set up an activity once you get a sense of what they're about. So availability, this is all about a due date and a cutoff date. I can have a due date and then a day or two later have a cutoff date where they absolutely can't submit by. Doing that will allow you to penalize those users by some point threshold for turning it in late if you'd like. Or you can just have a due date. Attachments and word count. So this is all for the forum attachments and word count stuff. Like if you want them to have a file submission, remember that if they're submitting things as files to a forum, the grading options that are available to us and the feedback that we can give right on that document are limited, right? In this case, our feedback is really in the form of replies, right? Because it's a forum. So I like to pare this down a little bit, honestly. Like, why do they need to be attaching more than 4 things to a forum post? I'm not sure. I also like to display a word count, especially if there's some type of expectation around that for the student. Subscription is all about whether or not users are going to be getting emails sent to their email addresses when a new post is created. So optional subscription leaves this up to the user and what they have in their preferences. Our alternatives are forced subscription, meaning that everybody gets the email, obviously. Auto subscription is my favorite. This is where a person is subscribed once they post to the forum. So the idea is, hey, you're engaging. Maybe you're engaged. I'm going to let you know when there's more here. We can also disable subscription entirely, which is kind of a cruel trick to play, but whatever. Read tracking is either optional or turned off. This can be the read tracking thing is something that a site administrator can set to yes at the site level before users are generally added to your Moodle site, so that they default to yes. Since we can't say specifically yes here, I like to do that. Let me make that make sense. I'm going to be flipping over to this other site because I'm an administrator here and I'm not in the MtMoot site. So as a site administrator, if I come to, let's see, users, and then it's going to be user default preferences here in site administration. Then down here at the bottom, forum tracking, by default, it's set to no, don't keep track, but I switched that purposely to yes, highlight new posts for me. I did this before I added the other volunteers and users at the pottery school so that they would be set up with this when they came in. And then now I don't have to like be bummed out every time I add a forum and I can't set this to, yeah, read tracking. What the heck is read tracking, you're asking? Well, read tracking is a really cool feature where when a user comes into the forum, or excuse me, comes into the course, right next to the forum, it will say 3 unread posts or 20 unread posts if it's active. You know, it tells them how many have happened since the last time they checked in. And I think that's incredibly helpful. So I like to do that. Yeah. Okay, discussion locking is all about shutting down the forum after a period of time happens. So you can say, you know, if it's been no activity for 1 day or 2 weeks or whatever, you can shut down new posts so that they move to a new place. A lot of times we see forums, sometimes like in our academics, they'll add a new forum every single week, which makes sense in some cases because there's a lot of discussion. But other times, you know, maybe it's not every couple weeks, but you do definitely want to move away from one and into the next because, you know, things get a little bit built up over time potentially. It can be hard to get through. So discussion locking helps with that type of thing. Then we've got blocking. So blocking isn't something that you really have to worry about in most applications of Moodle, but if you've got your site open so that anybody can come and register for a new account on your system and in turn can enroll themselves in your courses, then there is the possibility that you might have a spammer. Blocking is all about limiting the effects of spammers. So you can say how long to block people from posting to the forum. And if you do that, subsequent settings come up for like when you should warn them, hey, you're posting too much, knock it off. You're going to be blocked for a while if you don't, is kind of the business with this. It is not super applicable to most applications of Moodle. I haven't seen a Moodle forum where blocking was actually used in like several years. And partially that's because there are just better tools to keep your site secure in terms of like the CAPTCHA tools and stuff. There are also plugins that allow people to sign up for accounts, but then once they do, that has to be approved by an administrator before they can move about the cabin, so to speak. So there are a lot of ways to like catch it before it becomes a problem, but this, you know, is a nice fail safe. Then we've got post threshold. Oh, wait, we just did that. I just read that. Whole forum grading is next. And, you know, by default, forums don't need to be graded, right? We generally want people to like talk and cross-pollinate ideas and all that good stuff. And we don't necessarily have to grade it, okay? But sometimes you do want to grade the forum, in which case, in order for this to like work, you actually have to skip down here to aggregate type under ratings, because in forums, gradings are called ratings. So we can say a maximum rating or a sum of ratings. Let's do that. We'll say it's going to be worth 100. And then we're going to do point based with, you know, so we have to have kind of like agreement between ratings and grading, generally speaking. especially for like corporate and governmental bodies, we rarely see grading turned on. We do see it sometimes in our academics, but yeah, not always. Next is an area called common module settings, which means these settings are common to all activities and resources that you add. So do we want to make it available? So this is that whole, should it be hidden, but should it be not hidden, but also like very incognito? That's up to you. We can give it an ID number as well. Although I should note that the system will automatically give a number to these things. This can be valuable for reporting, especially in a large institution with tens of thousands of users. This stuff can be very important, but generally speaking, not super necessary by any means. Then we've got group mode. Whoa, group mode. That's a whole thing. What's group mode about? Well, you can have groups in your Moodle course, that's a fact. And if you apply group mode to any of your activities or resources, it's gonna really change the lay of the lands. So what does that mean? All right, well, no groups means no groups. Everybody's just in there together, they're yucking it up, they're having a good time in this forum, yada, yada, yada. If you want to have a little bit of distinction, though, among your population of learners, then you could establish group modes. There are two group modes, visible and separate groups. Visible groups means that groups can see each other. It's like a half wall between them, right? A pony wall. They can see that they're out there, and they can even see what they post to the forum. They can see that other chatter, but they are only allowed to interact, like actually type at their group mates, right? So they can see what the whole class is doing, but they can only like talk to their group buddies. Whereas in separate groups, it's a full wall, goes all the way up. They can't see each other. They can't respond to one another. Sometimes we see groups deployed in a course, but not in a way that students can see. And that's particularly what comes to mind here is the academic use case where it's a massive introductory or lecture course where you've got 400 students and 10 TAs or something. And so the group mode can be, in those cases, more for the grading class of people, the TA class of people, than it is for the students. You can incorporate some amount of student grouping or whatever, for instructional purposes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for instructional purposes. It can also be for grading purposes. Because of the different way that group mode affects different types of activities and resources, you really want to take this into consideration when you're setting up groups. So if you think that you might want to really bring group mode into some of this stuff, then I would implore you to check out the documentation on groups. You can both read a little bit about them here, but you can also find them on Moodle documentation, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. We're going to go to the portal for all the good stuff, plugins and documentation and all that very shortly, maybe. So group modes, a grain of salt is what I'm going to say here. It sounds very inviting and interesting, but if you set this up as group mode and don't in turn set up groups and put your users into them, people are going to be like, help, I can't post to the forum. And you're going to be like, well, I just don't know why. And it's because maybe you thought you made groups, but maybe didn't make groups, or maybe you made them too rigidly, that kind of stuff. It can get tricky. So just consult the documentation before jumping into group mode, I'd say. The next is restrict access. This is access restriction. It is pretty cool. I am going to add a restriction now. When I do so, I can select some criteria that the restriction is going to be based on. So I can do activity completion, which is the most common, quite frankly. So I can say, oh, this you must choose, or, oh, I hit it. That's right. Oh, the label can't be done. Because I took the you must choose thing and made it not hidden, but unavailable, right? It's not on my list anymore, but whichever one you're tracking, you can say as the restriction, but it doesn't have to be activity completion. Remember, it was like dates, grades, something in their user profile. This last one is a restriction set. So you can do if this and this and this or that, you can get kind of complex in your restriction logic with restriction set. These are also a type of plugin. At one point, Munami wrote a one of the choice types here. So, this might not be all of them either. That's another cool way to extend Moodle, I think. Question from Laura. Would you set up groups to use if you are teaching multiple sessions of the same course? Laura, that's a great question. And the answer is yeah. I wouldn't even just limit it to groups though. There's actually this other thing in Moodle called course meta link enrollment. And I don't want to run before we walk here, but suffice it to say, especially if you're teaching at higher ed organization, like, a university or something, those registrations are probably coming from discrete class shells. So one problem that instructors face with that multiple sections of the same course thing is that they have to upload their changes to 4 different sections of the course. So there's a tool called Course Meta Link Enrollment, which allows you to tie, let's say you have 5 sections of English 101. It allows you to bring the users, enroll them. If they're enrolled in one section of the course, you enroll them in the master course or parent course. We can think of it like that. So all of the enrollments from the 5 sections would come into that course. Once you get that set up, I would also establish groups based on enrollments. So you'd have, group A, which might be, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. and group B, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Or, you know what I mean? So your groups could absolutely correspond to that, but that could also be, piggybacking on some enrollment stuff to get them all in the same space as well. That works with your SIS integration potentially rather than against it. I hope I did not confuse any of you talking about that, because that is definitely next level conversation. Let's get back to access restriction. Actually, we were done with that. Let's move on to activity completion. These two things are like sisters. They're little twinsies. They go together like peas and carrots. Activity completion and access restriction are besties for sure. So not only because we can base access restriction on activity completion, but it's like how you make a daisy chain in your course. So this first setting, completion tracking, you typically have 2 options here, or 3 in this case. Do not indicate activity completion is always an option. With activities, you can have show activity as complete when conditions are met. With resources, you only have these first 2, either activity completion or actually, you get all 3. This second one, which is the default on this side, is students can manually mark the activity as completed. So that's honor system. Let's flip over to when conditions are met. So this is what is different depending on the type of activity or resource that you've got, right? These criteria are going to change depending on what it is. With resources, literally the only option under here is student must view to complete. Because with resources, there's no interactivity. We cannot track what they're doing. Remember, I said that earlier. So this is that exact thing, right? If it's an activity, there's probably some deeper amount of tracking we can do. So in this forum activity, what do we see? We see require grade. No, that's not it. We can require posts. Right? 1 post being a discussion or reply, or we can get granular. Let's say they have to post 1 discussion and 1 reply, right? Now you have to be careful because you can get into a little bit of hot water. What if I required that students posted 2 discussions? Why would that be a problem for me? Well, if you remember up here, I chose a very specific type of forum. each person posts one discussion. So if I had come down here and been a total sadist and said, but in order to complete this activity, one must post 2 discussions, I'd be an evil genius, but no one would ever be able to earn completion on this, and that could really trip us up. So do be careful that you have agreement here with your completion and the settings that come before it, right? Okay, we also have an expect completed on date, but these are used sparingly, if at all. And here's why. Once I click save on this activity with the completion tracking being what it is, as soon as people start to earn completion, completion tracking becomes locked. Because the system's like, hey, you already told them that they would be complete if they did XYZ. You can't go changing the game on them now. And in fact, there's a big button here that says completion has already been earned. If you unlock completion, it might destroy the completion records. Are you sure you want to unlock the completion? And invariably people do. And they change something and then they save it. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, where'd all those completions I used to have go? I sure need those for reporting. So they reach out to their help desk and the help desk says, why did you touch the thing? It told you not to touch it. It told you right then it was going to ruin everything and you still did it anyway. I don't get it, but that's how people are. So this is the stitch in time. I'm telling you now so that you don't do this to yourself later, because it's no fun for anybody. Okay, so it's important, I think, to kind of keep some boundaries around activity completion tracking. So even though I'm showing you these settings right now, if I were actually making this activity, I wouldn't even mess with activity completion today. I would get in there, I would make my first draft of all of the activities, and then I would tinker on some things and do some testing. And only when I was certain that it was perfect and beautiful would I go in and set activity completion tracking for each of my activities or resources that I would like to track. It's kind of the last step on my course design checklist is setting up activity completion tracking. Okay. So that's something. Oh, I see I've got some Wildland Fire people. What up, Wildland Fire people? Hi, everybody. That's awesome. Okay, so let's move on. Tags. Tags are for searching. If you've got global search enabled on your site, then you can have all of your activities and courses and all that stuff have tags so that it's findable when somebody searches for those terms. Most Moodle sites don't have global search turned on. And the search function that you see on like the home page, for example, will search course titles only. And that makes sense because usually we don't want people who don't belong in a particular course to just jam into a course because they searched for a weird term that we use, right? Usually there's some walls and gatekeeping around who can be in which spaces, which is why, most sites aren't set up to search that way. However, maybe your site's really open and freewheeling and you want them tags to be working. Well, honey, you can enter your tags here. This is all good. The last section we've got is all about competencies. We do not have enough time to really talk about competencies in this session. So I'm going to give you the very quick and dirty breakdown of what competencies are. Obviously, we all understand points-based evaluation. Oh, good job. You got 100%. That's an A. Yay. Everybody gets that. But a lot of places are like, A's mean nothing in the real world. And some institutions are choosing to move away from point or percentage-based evaluation of learning and instead move towards a competency-based education model. A competency-based education model is going to be built on concrete abilities, like can write a thesis statement, or for the Wildland Fire people, I don't know, can limit fuel sources in a given area. That was a stretch, guys. I'm doing my best on that one. But discrete tasks, right? And then those fit into a larger kind of taxonomy or hierarchy of kind of a task map, right? So like, if you think of everything that one needs to be an effective hot shot jumper person, right? Then we might break that down into some sub levels, and then beyond that, and then culminating in the tiniest discrete skills that we can teach to. In Moodle, you can set up those frameworks and you can tie them to learning plans, which are like individualized education plans that map out exactly what skills you want to teach and have this person learn to, and then enroll them in courses that have activities and experiences that build towards that competency. So it's an alternative framework for getting people learned and evaluations of learning. And I think it's pretty interesting, but it also takes a fair amount of thought because it's a bit of a shift in, approaches essentially. So, okay, I am going to click save and return to course, even though I did something that I wouldn't typically do around activity completion, but I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. Save and return course, bing, bang, boom, done. Added a form, just like that. Talked a lot. Usually only takes me a couple minutes, 1 minute, 90 seconds maybe, to get through those settings when I'm doing that without having to narrate through them. I know that took a long time, but they really doesn't take a long time. And guess what? Adding activities is pretty much all the same. Just added a form. Let's add something new. Let's add an assignment. Okay, assignment. First assignment. Here is my description. Boom, displayed on the home page. Actually, no, it's too much. I gotta upload some files if I want. I have some settings around date ranges. I'm just gonna have this be open forever. No big deal. Actually, remind me to grade these by a certain date. That's probably good. Submission types. So do I want file submissions or just online text? The answer is both. Either. I don't care. Maximum number of uploaded files. Whoa, bro. Ain't nobody got time for that. Let's take that down to 2. Maximum submission size. Ooh, site upload limit. Sounds good. Acceptable file types. You know what? Whatever they send, it's fine. Remember, if you ever don't understand what a particular setting is, there's usually a help icon that's got a lot of cool information. What am I going to do? Expand them all because I got to work through them all. So now we're going to come on down. Feedback types. Ooh, all of the feedback. Yes. Comment inline, absolutely. Submission settings require students to click the submit button. Well, that seems like an extra step nobody needs to take. Require students accept submission statement. Also, no. Additional attempts manually. Nope, automatically until I pass. Great. Maximum attempts, 9. Student submitting groups. Nope. Notifications. No notify graders when new submissions come in. Okay. Notify graders about late. Nope, that's not going to happen. Default for notify students. Yes, we do want them to know when I've graded things. Perfect. All right, what grade? 100 sounds amazing. Simple and direct grading. Yes, I like that. Grade to pass. It's a low bar around here, so 60. Blind grading. No, I'd like to be aware of who I'm talking to, sensitive to that particular user. Hide grader identity from students. Also no. Use grading workflow. Also no. Common module settings. Yes, make it available. No groups. Access restrictions. Absolutely. They have to also complete that blasted forum before they can come in here. And that's a fact. But this time, I'm not going to tell them about it. I'm going to be very shush. I'm going to click the eye icon on all this. They're not even going to see it until they do the other thing. Okay, activity completion tracking. Ooh, they can mark it as complete when conditions are met. They must submit. I don't care if they've passed. They just have to submit. Perfect. Tags, no. Competencies, no. Perfect. It's done. 90 seconds. Bam. It's not really the end of the world. It's also not the end of the world because with the exception of activity completion tracking, I can come back and change most of that stuff like tomorrow or whatever, you know what I mean? You do want things to be pretty well locked in before you throw your first round of testers through. And I always suggest throwing a round of testers through, even if it's just you. If it's you with a dedicated user account, a student account, come in there and test it out before you release the Kraken to the population. All right, so here's my first forum and my first assignment. I'm not available unless I do the previous thing. And then this one is not available until my first forum is marked complete. It's hidden otherwise. Now, I wonder what this course even looks like for a student. I mean, you all are students in this course, but not me. I'm a teacher. I wonder how I'd do something like that. Just kidding. I totally know. Up here in the corner, I'm going to switch my role too. That's my user menu down at the bottom. Switch role two, and then I choose a student to get a sense of how my course looks from the student perspective. Okay, interesting. Note my assignment is completely invisible because I haven't first completed the other thing. Very good, very good. Okay, get back to myself, come back up to the upper corner, and then don't click log out because that's a pain in the neck. Instead, click return to my normal role, come back here, and then I can turn editing on to keep on trucking. Nancy's got a question. Nancy says, I've noticed the always show description checkbox allows more than just description to be shown. It also makes the file attachment accessible even prior to the submission open date. This may be okay if the attachment is a rubric or other file that is okay for students to see before they open date, but not great if the attachment is an exam or case study that should be inaccessible until the open date. Is there a setting that can prevent the file from being accessible too early? Well, I would just take that off, the description off as a first point. I would also, so if you take the description off and you still have the file there, it will only appear when they hit this page, but they can only hit this page if it's if you've got the restrictions set. So like basically what I would do is I would take the description off of the course page, and then I would add a restriction so that it's not available until X date, right? So then that way I can click in here because I'm a teacher, but if it was a student, they wouldn't even, they wouldn't be able to click into that until the date happens, which actually reminds me of something. So I just showed you how to switch your role to see what a student sees. And I want to be very clear that when you switch role to, you are assessing the aesthetic of a course, right? Switch role to is not going to show you what functionality looks like, although it may, like in this case, I can't click on that thing even though I want to. But it's not always a good test for functionality. So after you've built out your content, you're going to want to have a secondary user who is not a teacher in this course, a test account, that's a student. And for those of you who are going to be administrators on your Moodle system, this is especially true. Your administrator account should be separate from anything else. So you won't ever enroll your administrator account into a course as a student or as a teacher, right? Because your admin capability will always override. So you'll never be able to experience the course like a student or a teacher would. You always get the admin thing. The same is true for teachers, right? If you're a teacher in a course and then you give yourself the student role, your teacher role will always override your student role in that context. So you'll never experience it as a student. So that's why it's important to have dedicated testing accounts that are students only in this course, like they can be still students in multiple courses, but they shouldn't be teachers in the same course. You got to keep it separate for testing purposes. And it's critical to test your content before you put it out there. So yes, okay. Alrighty, now I am going to switch my role back because I can't do anything and it's very frustrating. And just want to, goodness, for some reason I thought there were only 6 people, but it's 6 pages of people. So definitely want to encourage folks to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to shift away now a little bit from activities and resources, because honestly, once you've added a couple activities, you get the point, right? It's just a form that you fill out. The one exception to that I would definitely say is that H5P is a bit different, right? There's going to be some more stuff that you have to do because it's like tools within a tool. but I don't want you to be alarmed. It's actually super easy to work through. So what I would suggest is, if you've never made any Moodle content before, go in, make a forum, make a label, maybe make a page. And I would not even worry about getting to H5P is awesome, but I would suggest that you make 3 or 4 resources that are Moodle specific that aren't H5P before you try H5P. It's going to build up your confidence, and it's going to help you be empowered when that creation page comes up for H5P to, kind of take stock of what you're looking at and approach it with a sense of playfulness. I think another thing that I would say is, I've worked with, 800 different companies and organizations to bring their learning into Moodle over the years. It's like a lot. And one thing that I see time and time again, training people who are new to Moodle, is that they're intimidated. And if you are out there and you just one at a time add a few different types of activities, you're going to see that there's nothing to be intimidated by here. Okay. It's a form. It can't bite. It's just a simple form. We fill out forms all the time, all parts of our jobs, right? So one at a time, give it a name, and then, open these one by one. It's asking you a question. If you don't get the question, leave it at the defaults. If you are worried about the question, click on the help icon. This is not rocket science. It's just a matter of reading what's on the screen and keeping calm. You can add these activities. You will become more intimidated if you go directly into H5P though. So just make a couple of activities, then start tinkering with H5P. H5P also cannot bite you. You're going to be fine. But I've seen a lot of people shake. A lot of people get nervous where there's no need to be nervous. It's just a form. Forms aren't scary. So, okay. As I was saying, I want to shift focus away from making content because I think that everybody can do that easily in their sandbox course. And I want to start to think about the course as a whole and how to manage the course and how to kind of care for the course as a whole rather than specifically the content therein. In order to do that, I really need to become familiar with my course administration menu. Okay, so here in the upper right-hand corner of the course, under the gear icon, is the truncated course administration menu. We see some links here, but then at the bottom, there's a big link to more. If you click more, it expands the entire menu. I'm going to do that as a first bit of business. When I click that, it takes me to a new page. This is the course administration menu. This exists in each course space in Moodle. The course administration menu, we can do all types of things like make backups, set course completion. We're going to go through these. We can also see things like reports, see what people are doing. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've gotten a ticket from somebody who says, oh, John Smith said that they took a quiz at this time, but they got a 0 and there's no record that they took the quiz. Can you please help me prove this to be true? Or like, what happened? Why did Moodle eat his quiz? Then we go into the logs and we look at the time and we see what was done. And because, every time somebody clicks something in Moodle, a record is taken. So I can tell you right now that never in my life has a quiz eaten somebody's attempt. People have tried to tell tales and maybe opened up a quiz page and then never did anything else. Maybe their internet dropped or something, but the logs are very handy. So reports are good. Badges. Remember earlier I talked about hiding Easter eggs. Badges are a way to do that. There's a really cool session coming up this conference about micro-credentialing that relies heavily on badges. That looks super interesting. We also mentioned earlier how we can organize our questions within the question bank. So that's all accessible through the course administration menu. There's 2 tabs here though. The other tab is all about users, who they are, how they got here, and what they can do. So we're going to talk about all this stuff in our next chunk of time here. All right, so the first things first, edit settings is the overarching, what I think of as container settings for the course. If you're a site administrator and you're creating new course sections all the time, you're going to have to come up with, the settings for this screen kind of a lot. People who are educators primarily and have courses handed to them don't have to worry and contend with this stuff as much. But I will warn you that if you are a school or institution whose courses are created automatically through some type of integration with your student information system, changing the course full name or short name can be detrimental to that integration. So definitely only change the name of a course that's been handed to you if you know that it's okay to do so. Beneath those, we can change the course category that this lives in if we have the permission. We can set the course to visible, which is show, or hidden. Obviously, courses that are hidden cannot be accessed by the learner class of people. A course start date is important. It is going to inform the week-by-week breakdown if you're using a weekly course format. It's also the first day that logs are really taken for your course. A course end date doesn't have to be there, right? But we've got it set up in this one. Another thing about course start date, is if you've got a course, by default, Moodle will always, if you make a new course, it'll be like, oh, starts tomorrow, not today. So sometimes on your dashboard or like in your navigation pane, you won't see a course that you know you're enrolled in. Might be because the start date hasn't happened yet. So that's something to watch out for. You can give the course an ID number, but you do not have to. Description is a great place to put a catalog description. And you can also import an image if you'd like it to have one. Images are cool because the ones that you bring in will help for the dashboard. You see how they all have this kind of like generic colors or whatever. That's the standard thing. But if you put an image, it'll be here. So it's nice, I think, when organizations have a standard image size so that they're all kind of equal and not like wonky looking. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. Hey, fun facts. I know this isn't an activity, but are you getting the sense that everything is just a form to fill out? Because it is. Do not be alarmed. We're going to be doing a lot of this. Okay, so course format. Topics format is the standard. There's also a weekly format, a social format, and a single activity format. Single activity format is almost guaranteed to confuse the heck out of you because when you select this one, you choose a particular activity and that's the whole course. That's it. There's no main course page. It's just that activity. So when I see people testing this one out for the first time, they get very turned around. So be careful. And fun fact, course formats are another type of Moodle plugin, which means that other formats are available on the Moodle plugin directory, meaning that you can install them in your site, or if you have a Moodle hosting provider, you can probably reach out to them to see if they will install it for you. What should we do about hidden sections within the course? Should they be shown in collapsed form or hidden completely? Do we want to show all of these sections on one page or perhaps just one at a time? Those are our basics around course format. You should also note that if you switch course format right now, the whole page will refresh. Watch this. Oh, that's because every course format might have its own settings. There's a really popular one out there called collapsed topics. There's another popular one called buttons. There's, all kinds of ones. And some of them have like massive settings sections with like color choosers and all kinds of stuff so that they can look pretty, which is why this kind of like reloads so that if there are extra settings to contend with, you can handle it right then and there. Next, we've got questions around appearance. Do you want to force a particular language? You can, if you want. I see it done in language learning classes all the time. Announcements. So the announcements forum, which is a special kind of forum. We didn't talk about that earlier, but every Moodle course comes fresh with an announcements forum. It's a one-way communication tool where teachers can post announcements to the course. Everybody is automatically subscribed to the announcements forum. And it's a great one-way communication tool, but because forum posts have to sit in a queue a little bit before the notifications reach, it's really not a great place to say, hey, that class we've got coming up in an hour is canceled, because it might actually take an hour to get that message out to people. If you've got an urgent message that you need to get to your class, there's going to be a better way to do that. A great way to use the announcements forum is like, next week's Tuesday test has been switched to Thursday. Thank you in advance. You know, like you want to give them a little bit of notice with that announcements forum. All right, do we want to show a gradebook to students? Many of you are in corporate settings where grades do not matter and everything's made up. Turn off the gradebook. That's a fact. If you don't have a gradebook there, students aren't going to wander in and be like, why is it saying that I have a 0 even though I've completed half the course? So you don't have to explain to them that points are made up and nothing matters and it's all about completion, potentially, right? If you're not using it, shut it off. Show activity reports, kind of the same deal. All right, maximum upload size. We've got it at the limit. We can tamp it down if we need to. There's really not a need to. Completion tracking is turned on. That's beautiful. We can force a group mode at the course level, which would in turn affect all of the activities and resources that we add to the course. But that's like a whole lot of potential disaster that we don't want to do. So more often than not, we typically, don't have a group mode enforced at the course level. Now, if you don't use the word teacher, if you use the word presenter, for example, okay. All right, so by default, Moodle comes with, this role is actually called teacher, but it's called presenter because we're at a conference. And Ryan Hazen, or one of his minions, had the foresight to go in at the site level and change the name for teacher to presenter. But maybe I want to be a teacher. You can't tell me I'm not a teacher. I don't have a credential, but you know what? I'm a teacher. I can change that at my course. This is a very local role name change. And of course, we have another place to add tags for our course. So I'm actually not going to save any of those changes. Beautiful. All right, those are the course settings. So I think of, again, container settings. These are what does our box look like, right? That we're going to put everything in. That's the edit settings. This is course settings, container settings. The next link in the menu for course administration is activity. Nope. It's course completion. Okay. So we've looked at activity completion, but this is course completion. These two things oftentimes work in tandem, right? Maybe in order for the course to be complete, XYZ activities must be complete. And then someone is, considered complete. There are other options for conditions for course completion. So like you can say somebody has to come in and manually say that they've completed it, or they have to get a certain grade, or they have to be in here a certain amount of time. These are options. For any of you who are working with Moodle Workplace, course completion is absolutely detrimental to program and certification functionality. The same is true if you're using Totara, which is an LMS derived from Moodle that the Wildland Fire people are currently using. Course completion is critical if you're setting up programs certifications. Again, anything called completion is something better left to those final stages of development. That's not something that you do step one. It's, last steps before you release the course. Next up, we have some settings for filters. Typically speaking, if you come in here and mess with filters, you're going to get in a world of hurt. It's not a place for newbies to be poking around, if I'm being quite honest with you. Filters are things that, like, when you post a YouTube link to your course, a filter might pick it up and just display it in a YouTube player right then and there. So that would be like a multimedia plugin. They have to be in a specific order in order to work correctly. This is not something that you can't play with, but if you do, it just might be a little bit more danger than some of the other things that you can tinker with. Gradebook setup is definitely where we go if we want to set up our gradebook for the course. I would definitely suggest ordering this after content creation. So like After you get your activities built, then you set up your grade book, then you set up your activity completion. Okay. We also have the ability to back up a course and restore a course and reset a course. So backup allows you to take a full copy of your course. In the backup process, you can choose to retain user data, the stuff that your users contributed. So that would be like their forum posts, their quiz attempts, that kind of stuff. Or you can do it without any of that. Restore says, hey, I've got a copy of a Moodle course that I'd like to copy into this one. You can also accomplish that with the import tool. If you are teaching another course on the system, you can import content from one of your courses to another of your courses. It's not possible to import content to courses that you don't belong to if you're a teacher, right? It's also important to note that it's called an import tool, not an export tool, which means that you want to go to the course that you want content to come to and import it to you rather than going to the course where the content is and using the tool to import from somewhere else. That gets people a lot. So yeah, import, not export. Reset is a tool to wipe all of the user contributions to a course. So like the forum posts and the attempts and quizzes and all that stuff. It says wipey, all clean, let's start again. That's not used nearly as frequently. The next link is a recycle bin. And boy, am I excited to talk to you about the recycle bin. I mentioned it earlier. I was like, I'm going to delete this thing, and in a little while, I'm going to have this whole recycle bin that's got the thing that I deleted. And you said, and I quote, Shalimar, I don't believe you. You're a filthy liar. And I said, how dare you call me that in front of all these nice people? And then we had a whole argument, and you were like, you know, proof is in the pudding. You all remember that, right? When we had that big fight? Well, told you so. Because here's that thing I deleted, and it's easy to restore it with one click of a button. I'm going to do it. All right, I did it. It's done. If I come back to my course, I can see it. It's down here. I need to move it back to where I wanted it, though. It's up here. Okay, we didn't actually fight like that, and we are actually a group of like 30 people, so yeah. Okay, back to the administration menu. What? The recycle bin went away. That's because it was empty. There was nothing in it. So here in an instant, gone in a flash. All right, our next set of links is all about those reports. Reports will change. This is not an exhaustive list of reports because while I do have activity completion tracking set up in the course, I never clicked save on course completion tracking. And once I do, a whole new report, it appears here. It's called course completion. So be on the lookout of that. Favorite report, hands down, activity completion. Why? Bam, let's go in there. Oh, because it's a matrix. I love that. I love that about this. Shows you the person, if they did something, and what that's about. Anybody want to venture a guess as to the difference between a dashed box and a solid box? Put it in the chat now. Why are some of them dash lines and some of them solid lines? Accepting answers and guesses now. Laura Page. Laura, you're exactly right. Yep, Nancy. Yep. You two won. So if it's a solid line, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you. Actually, it won't. Oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, it used to. Okay, well, the situation is this. If it's a solid line, that means that users can mark it themselves. That's the honor system, right? They self-attest that it was done. So Catherine has joined the video conference and told us that she has. Good job, Catherine, right on time. These others are completed only once conditions are met. Remember, I set up conditional completion for some of this stuff. And so that's why the dash line. Love this report. Love it. Okay, let's get back to some other reports. The next one, let's go to logs. I'm going to hit the logs. Notice that we have some filtering options up here at the top. We can choose a particular user or date, all kinds of specific information. But I want to be a little stinker and make the site be a little bit slow for everybody. So I'm going to say, give everything to me, which can sometimes take a couple seconds to generate. And it can also slow things down if you've got a ton of content to pull up in logs. You can also, as site administrators, you would be able to pull logs for the entire site, which that's really when things slow down. Anywho, here's logs. They got a timestamp, a user whose name is linked to their profile, who's the affected person. So, for example, if Laura was grading someone, the person that she would be grading would be the affected user, the context, the event name, and description numbers with particular ID numbers, which can be super valuable when you're doing deep troubleshooting. Also, IP addresses. So we can kind of compare and contrast some things here. Logs, again, very useful for things like confirming, denying reports of technical shenanigans. Also, a lot of times, if you're working at a higher ed institution, the registrar or like admissions or financial aid will need to call in and make sure that a student was working in a course up to a certain date or past a certain date for loan repayment stuff. That actually comes up a weird amount in higher ed places. So that's another reason that we use logs regularly. Any questions about logs? Or reporting in general? There are other types here. I suggest you check them out. They're all pretty cool, right? I'm not going to click on every one of them, but they are pretty cool. You can tell what's performing well and what is not, right? Okay, next is badges. Badges are great. Let's add a new one. We can go to manage badges, but I haven't put any in there yet. So let's just start by adding a badge, right? Okay, this is the I was there badge. It's for noobs. This is version 1. It's in English. Description. This is a badge to prove that I listened to Shalimar ramble on about Moodle for 3 flippin' hours on a Wednesday afternoon. Yay? Question. Okay, and then we need to have an image because that's the whole thing with a badge. A badge is an image with information baked into it. So Wikimedia. What am I going to search for? Hooray. Let's see what happens. Sometimes with the Wikimedia searches, it's weird what you get. So you have to be careful sometimes with. Let's do. Oh wait, I know. We're going to search for survival. Wow. Okay, this is definitely something. That looks like a whole bunch of people in not the best situation. Let's select that. What? Too large. Ew, hateful. Okay, so what we're going to do about that is it's too big to use because of the site settings. So what we can do is instead of, oh wait, I don't have the ability to link to it. So that's not going to be the one that we choose. Oh boy. All right, this one. Yeah, thank God. Okay. Author's name, I don't know, unknown. Okay, so the thing, all of this is just you gotta put some stuff into it. This is all the metadata that gets baked into it. You want to be as accurate as possible. I am just entering dummy information because we have to keep moving. Thanks. The dog, I hope that you heard that earlier because nobody has been snoring in here for at least 1 minute. I just let her out of the office a minute ago. Expiry date. You have to have an expiry date, people. If you're going to have this badge out there in the world, you can actually take badges out of the system. And so you don't want to attest that, you know, this person is good at, let's say, CPR in forever, you know what I mean? Because you have to get recertified every once in a while. So I always like to have a relative date. So I'll do like 160 days after the date of issue, it's going to expire. So then you say create badge. Ugh. Okay, your URL has to be an actual URL. You just can't shortcut it. All right, so once you create the like initial badge with the image and the basic metadata, then you have to work through these tabs to get some criteria going. So I'm going to say, hey, if they complete this activity, they're gonna get the badge. And it's going to be this one, and it's going to be this one. You have to do the forum and you have to join the video conference. Not when you do any, when you do all, you must do both. And then I can give a custom description here if I want, but I'm just going to click save. Okay. And now we've got completion criteria. Beautiful. Next, message. I can send a special message out when somebody earns the badge. There's also some default text here. So there's that. I can also choose to notify the creator myself, but I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to leave this as it is. Currently, there are no recipients of this badge because I have not turned it on. See this big button up here, enable access. I need to go through all of these tabs before I enable access to make sure it is what I want it to be. An endorsement from a third party can add value. I'm not doing any of that because I don't have these things. This would be something that you set up in conjunction with a third party or a provider who offers this kind of thing to you. There are no related badges, but you can have criteria that has badge like intercontextuality, very postmodern of it all, quite frankly. And we're not going to do any of that. So basically, once you get this stuff done, you might not be using any of this stuff, which is fine. So once you get it to a place that you like it, click enable access. Listen, you get a confirmation page because it's trying to tell you, listen, if you're going to let this out there, it's just going to be there. And then it's going to be there forever. So you can't change it after that. It's out there. So I'm going to put it out there. Currently, none of you have done the thing. Maybe when cron runs, we'll see if any of you are able to earn this badge, but it's out there. It's earnable now. And that's badges. You can have lots of badges. Badges, again, my favorite application of them is when they're hidden like Easter eggs throughout the course. It really motivates me to turn over every stone, if you know what I mean. So yeah. All right, next up comes users. Users are such an important part of our sesh, of our class, because we have to ensure that they're having a good time. First of all. Secondly, we have to make sure they're getting into where they need to be, such as, in the course space, in the correct role, maybe in a correct group. All of that can be handled from this users area. But it should be noted that participants is also a great link to get to the most primary participants page, which is essentially the enrolled user screen. So both of these links take you to the same kind of gig, and it shows you all of your participants. Oh my gosh, there was only 30 people in here yesterday, and now there's so many. I'm always so shocked at how many people want to come and hear me ramble on for so long. Okay, so this page is really cool because it's got all kinds of filters, right? You can have so many filters. Look, you can click match this, any of this, look at all these, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you don't have to have them. If you want to bring new people in, there's a big old button at the top. It says enroll users. If you do it this way, it's called a manual enrollment. Notice that you can search for an individual user, Or you can search for a cohort of users. Cohorts are system level groups. So it looks like we do have some cohorts in the system based on what type of industry we're in, which is cool. Once you select a cohort, it's important to note that this would be a one-time enrollment of that cohort, meaning anyone who's a member of that cohort in this instant is going to be enrolled in this course. And then that's it. Okay, we're going to give them a particular role. There's also some extra special settings down here below show less, or well, show more when you click it. Okay, this first one, super important. If you ever unenroll someone from a course, you want to select this box if you re-enroll them. You need to. It's a pain in the neck if you don't. It's important, right? If they were already here doing work and had grades and unenrolled and then re-enrolled without clicking this box, their grades aren't going to come back. Oh, terrible. So be mindful of that. Honestly, enrolling users manually is no fun for teachers, right? A lot of us have, again, integrations that handle not only creating our initial course shell, but maybe also bringing our users in, which is why back here on the users tab of the course administration menu, we have options around enrollment methods. I'm going to take you there now. We're going to jump around this page a little bit. I've got a lot of stuff to show you, right? So enrollment methods shows us the way that users are being added to this course. So 2 people were added manually to this course by someone who is a privileged user, probably an admin or a site manager, whereas everybody else enrolled themselves. But this isn't an exhaustive list. There are other ways to enroll people in courses. So for example, we have a cohort sync. On that last screen, we talked about how if you enroll someone on this page, it's a one-time enrollment of a cohort. Well, this is the opposite of that. If you want a cohort sync, what that does is it says, hey, anytime someone is added to or removed from this cohort, add them to or remove them from this course. So that's a great way to keep people coming in. Auto enroll is a separate plugin that allows you to establish auto enrollment in a particular course, which would make it so that everybody who logs into your site is automatically enrolled in a particular course. I have a sneaking suspicion that our humble mutineers use the auto enrollment method on the Mountain Moot Commons course. Right? You didn't have to enroll yourself there. It was like already set up for you, probably with that special plugin. This is not the end, okay? So I'm gonna take you behind the scenes again as an administrator at an older Moodle site that I have permission to play with. Come over to site administration, and I want to take you to the land of plugins. This is where administrators manage plugins, okay? There's activity modules. Remember, we talked about that, yada, yada, yada. Well, currently we're in discussions based around enrollment methods. Mwahaha. If I come into view these, I can see which are available on the site and also which have been disabled, right? These are all the ones we turned off on this particular site. But this isn't even the end. There's a whole wide world of plugins on the plugin directory. Now, I have been teasing you all with discussions of the plugin directory since we got started. The reason for that, the reason that I haven't taken you there yet is because Moodle.org is having problems today. Yesterday and today, a lot of the documentation and stuff that's out there is all shut down for maintenance. I think that might still be happening. All right, so we're going to shift gears. We have about 30 minutes left in this session. So what I want to do is I want to take a quick 5 because we've been at it for a little while. We're going to take a quick 5. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Moodle community and tapping into the resources that are available for free through the Moodle community. Okay, so take 5. And when we come back, we're going to look at this Moodle community. Okay. Stretch your legs. I promise it's worth it to stretch your legs. Okay, I'm not sure if that was a full 5 minutes. I'm going to just ease back into it here. If you're with me still, that's good business. If you're taking your break, I also respect that because I'm not sure it's been quite 5. So, yeah. Well, maybe just do a couple of like neck rotations, like just make a little big, slow intentional circles. It's going to be a big, awesome day of conferencing. We're just getting started. So, oh, yeah. Okay. We're going to power through. Hope to get you out a few minutes early so that you can socialize and go to some of those vendor spaces before your next session. We want to shift focus now to the Moodle community. The Moodle community is what makes Moodle awesome. And although this is our very kind of first thing that we're doing as a part of the conference, I hope that we make some really awesome connections this year, like we do every year, because it's the community that really makes the difference. The Moodle community lives at Moodle.org. And this is your gateway to all of the good stuff that's happening in the community. From here, you can find your way to things like the support and community forums. So if you're somebody who's self-hosting or hosting at like a generalized hosting company like GoDaddy or something, they have like one-click install, you might find yourself needing support here and there. And the community forums are a great place to ask questions. The other thing that you're going to find here is a lot of the documentation. So docs live at a place called docs.moodle.org. You're going to notice up here in the favicon area, each of the little Moodle symbols have a different color. So purple is for documentation, orange is for the main zone, green is the plugin directory, the tracker is purple. Wait a second. That must mean this is, I don't know how to different, what are the different words for these purples? We've got like a actual purple and like an eggplant purple. Okay. And then there's actually one more that's red. Does anybody know what the next one, the one that's kind of a reddish tone is? You guys want to venture a guess? It's all about languages. red kind of vibe. Yeah, good job, Erin. Languages, that's right. This is all about translation. Remember, Moodle is used all over the world, so it has to be translated into languages from all over the world, which is awesome. The different colors are your guide to which area of the Moodle community you're accessing. I think for you, the most important initially are going to be the documentation, which was actually funny because all day yesterday and the day before they were, or no, all day yesterday and then earlier this morning, they were down for they were doing like maintenance. So you couldn't, I was like, oh my gosh, we can't go into a conference with the docs down. It was very stressful. You could still find them through like the internet archive machine or whatever, but nobody got time for that. So I'm glad to see that they're backing up today. The cool thing about the cool thing about Moodle is that you can do a Google or any search. I use Ecosia because it plants trees. You can do a search for any question that you have, and the documentation typically has some information for you, right? So one thing that I was like, oh, you're going to want to look that up before you go traipsing into there. You might look for competency-based education Moodle, and your search engine will take you in the first one or two links to what you searched for. I was looking for this. Oh my gosh, docs.moodle.org. Booyah. It knew where I wanted to be. Now, the doc pages start usually with a big table of contents, but just a reminder, most of these things are only a few sentences long. It's not like you have to read a novel, right? Like there's pictures, you don't have to get too stressed out. It's okay. The picture to word ratio is not anything to stress out about. Maybe that's, well, yeah. I have to teach people how to do this a lot. And I see the look on their faces sometimes looking at the table of contents like, oh my God, how am I going to get through all of this? It's really not all that bad, especially if you go in on an as needed basis rather than try to just read the docs. That's never going to be helpful. Okay, so documentation is a big important part. The other one is the plugin directory. So the plugin directory is green. It lives at moodle.org/plugins. Note that that's a little bit different, right? docs.moodle.org, tracker.moodle.org, lang.moodle.org are all subdomains, whereas this is moodle.org/plugins. So that's kind of different. Over here in the plugin directory, there are nearly 2,000 plugins, over 1,000 developers, and people downloading stuff all the time. Just because there are nearly 2,000 plugins doesn't mean there are nearly 2,000 plugins that are going to work with your site. So how do we search effectively? Well, we can look for a plugin by type. So for example, earlier we talked about course formats. If I select course format from here, it's going to show me all of them. But if I click the More button, I can search for course formats that are compatible with my version. Moodle 3.11 was just released a few weeks ago. And so the likelihood that we've got a ton of these in here compatible for 3.11 is probably going to pare it down quite a bit. So there's no More button. It's just one page. Let's compare that with something that's tried and true and been around a while. Our current long-term support release is Moodle version 3.9. And there are many more course formats for that one. See, you're going to want to make sure that you look for formats that are compatible with your version. Many of you are on Moodle Cloud. Moodle Cloud might not allow you to add plugins, or you might be with a host that doesn't allow for plugins. If that's the case, I'm sorry. There are lots of Moodle partners wandering around this conference, and we'd be happy to help get you moved over to an infrastructure that does allow for plugins, if that's something that you're feeling sad about missing out on. Suffice it to say that just because a plugin is out here doesn't necessarily mean that it works well. So I'm going to pop into one of these plugins pages and kind of show you all how I do a sniff test on a Moodle plugin. Sniff test is just like the once over to make sure that it looks healthy enough for testing with. So when I do that, I come to the page of the plugin and I look for information like this. Latest release was just 2 days ago. It's on almost 10,000 sites, a lot of downloads. And it's, if I'm on Moodle version, let's say 3.10, I definitely see compatibility. I'll flip here to my versions area and I'll look to see when it was most recently released for my version. So for 3.10, it came out in February. That's fine. But I also know that someday I'm going to be on 3.11, and I love seeing that this is an early adopter and that it's really healthy. This is being actively maintained. Then the next one, or back at the description tab, the next thing I'll do is see if I've got any kind of links to documentation. Oh my gosh, I love that. And then I'll also take a look at screenshots. But then the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to go and look at the comment section. So I see things like amazing plugin. Okay. Thank you so much, emphatically, thank you. If I'm seeing things like it's broken, help, I can't get it to work, blah, 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 that's not as exciting as thank you, oh my gosh, thank you, yes, thank you, I love it, da, da, da. That's very promising. So the tiles format is one that looks very healthy, very potentially helpful, and should probably be loaded into the site for testing if it appeals to me. So that's how I do a basic sniff test. Technicians who would be responsible for installing these plugins would have a more rigorous set of tests to put it through around security and whatnot. But that's how you can generally assess to see if something is looking healthy. So that's the plugin directory and how to use it. Okay, at this point, I feel pretty good that we have given you a solid introduction to Moodle and working with Moodle. We've certainly focused on the teacher perspective a lot, not only because there are a lot of educators in this session, but also because people who will become Moodle administrators who are stepping into that role need to have a very solid understanding of what the bulk of your users are doing in the system. And the vast majority of Moodle users are learners. What they can do in the system is interact with the tools that we've established for them. So as administrators, we're trying to make the world better for our teachers, who in turn are creating content and engaging experiences for students. So it's a trickle down kind of domino effect. So every good administrator has to see how their teachers are working in this. They have to see how their users are using the tool. So if you're just getting started, even if you're going to be an IT admin type person, the value in seeing how this stuff works together is fundamental to being, good at your job with Moodle. So yeah, questions I'm open for. I will be here until the 30 after the hour to take questions and to answer questions. Yeah, I hope you have a good day. It's going to be an awesome conference. Get out there and have some fun and try to break it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I am sticking around for questions. So again, if you have any questions, it doesn't have to be on something that I covered. It could just be a random question. Happy to help.
Hi, this is Laura. Thank you so much. It was very knowledgeable and engaging.
Aw, thanks. Charlotte, to answer your question, yeah, there are some links to some basic explainer videos and some playlists on YouTube within the course space for this session. I think it's called like helpful links or something. So yeah. How do you visit vendors? I think there should be some information on that in the Mountain Rune Commons. I think each vendor might also have their own course space. And I think there's going to be some social time coming up. So check the Mountain Moot Commons for information on that. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot to talk about the games. Beth, good call. Let me just show you. Check this out. Activity module, okay? And then I'm just gonna do game because it's a whole, check this out. There, you know, not every one of these games is like super, super modern looking. Like these could definitely be like zhuzhed or whatever, but there's a lot of games out there. Some of them are premium offerings, others are not. So like the standard one is this game plugin, and it has several different types of games that can be added. My favorite here though is absolutely the crossword. Remember earlier when I was like, glossary can be used to set up games. Well, glossary can be used to set up most of these games. So yeah, this is a really popular one. Been around the block, has been around with Moodle for a long time, is pretty popular. But these are just activity modules. So come back to the plugins directory, look for an activity module and game, or also if you were to do a search for like gamification in Moodle, there's lots of previous conference sessions as well as some great articles over at LMS Pulse about what's out there. So hope you can find what you're looking for. Jennifer, we will probably be able to view this again. I think we have a mutineer on call maybe who might be able to answer that. I suspect it will be posted to our Moodle course shell, the one that we have for this course, the Moodle for Noobs shell.
Yes, Shalimar, this is Matt. I'm the academic technology specialist here at Carroll. Yeah, every course that we go through during this conference will be recorded, edited, and then put up on the Moodle site for further review down the road.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey man, thanks for answering that question. And I'm sorry I called you a Ryan's minion earlier.
No worries.
Charlotte, you're making me blush. I do not have a Tumblr page, and I keep a pretty low profile on most social media, but I'm on LinkedIn for sure if you want to find me there. And I'm at like every Moodle conference in America, so you know there's a lot of that going around. So find me on LinkedIn. I think that there's some pretty exciting news coming out around Moodle US, and I'm definitely going to be I am most likely going to be a part of that organization. So yeah, very, very out there. How do you upload the plugins to your course? Okay, so that's a great question. Someone who works as your site administrator or whoever's managing the like server and Moodle software would have to upload the plugin or get it installed and enabled. Once it's enabled on your site, it will be available in your course. So a site administrator would do a lot of that lifting for educators. So if you're an admin, then that's a very big question that I cannot answer at this moment, but there are probably some sessions that will be of value to you around site administration this conference. Still questioning on how to make a course and use it multiple times without recreating. Laura, the course reset function is a way to reset or wipe this course clean and use it again for a new population without saving or preserving on the system what everyone did in the previous iteration. So we don't see it used too frequently because everybody wants to like save everything for forever because of archiving. But if that's not a concern, or if you take a backup of everything before you push the reset, then the reset tool would be a great way to use the content again without bringing any of that user data forward.
That's what I was thinking. If you back up the course after you complete it, and then you kind of just tweak the name or the time or the dates, and then hit reset, it'll just kind of recreate the whole training.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I would also tell you, don't just make the backup, also delete it from the system. Or I'm sorry, not delete, download. You're going to make the backup, and then you're going to make sure to store it somewhere locally or whatever before you hit the reset button.
Okay.
So reset course, there's a whole documentation page on this. Let's see if it works. Yay! They definitely changed the way some of this looks. So that was the maintenance that happened, I would imagine. So this has the step-by-step instructions, and you know, tells you all about that. So I'll post this in the chat right now, but you know, that's how I do it for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Still got a few minutes for questions. It does not have to be on something that we covered in our session. I have been doing Moodle for a really long time, so like, you know, fire away, essentially.
This is Charlotte. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. Well, you kind of did a thing where you put the video in the course and you could do a quiz in it or something, and that was through Moodle. Which
Yep,
I didn't know that you could do that at all.
We looked at the H5P interactive video content type. This one, that's what you're talking about, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so in the course, in order to create that, we would do it like we create anything else. We would, first of all, get editing turned on, and then we would just come down to the add an activity or resource menu. And then depending on what your institution is using, you're either going to use this H5P or the H5P interactive content. Either one should allow you to, let's just try one. Let's just try one.
Are these new, or how long have they been here?
They've been incorporated. Okay, so Moodle incorporated H5P functionality into its native, like, you know, release on version 3.9, which was last spring. And it had been around for at least a year, maybe two before that. So yeah, it's been a little while, but it's, you know, the integration is getting tighter as we go along. So it's just a form like everything else, but yeah. It's,
but then, okay. And you can grade them. Or when they answer the questions, that acts as a quiz and that goes to be graded.
Yeah, so that's actually, there's one thing to keep in mind is that H5P interactive video questions are not quiz questions that are stored in your question bank. It's like a separate thing. So these things are meant to be used more for like instructional purposes rather than assessment.
Okay.
So the type of activity, the type of H5P that I went into, let me actually go back. So on this screen, because we're using the one that comes standard in Moodle as a part of the Moodle build, it says use the content bank, opens a new window to manage your H5P. So if I click that, I go to the content bank and I have to click add up here. And then I have to choose the type of content I'm creating. So we're going to do, what was it?
A video, interactive video.
Right. So then this is going to like, oh, you want to build an interactive video, huh? See, well, and then you got to give it a title. So, and then we just choose the video that we want to take from YouTube. You know, it could be like a video of cats or whatever. Click insert. And then basically what we'll do is we'll work through step 1, step 2, step 3. Right. So it's all here within Moodle that you build everything.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, if I was presenting this to somebody to use, my concern is that they would upload their own video instead of first uploading it to YouTube. And we want it on YouTube so that we have a transcription.
right.
But even if it's some video that's not theirs on YouTube and it doesn't have that transcription, we can still find a way around that. okay, anyways, just that, okay, it makes sense though. I'm just wondering why my organization wouldn't use this and would go to an outside service that does this. And like, I forget the name
Okay,
of
so
it.
that's a really great question, and I think I can shed some light on it. So some SCORM packages are kind of the norm on how some of this is typically presented, and SCORM packages are incredibly portable. So you can present a SCORM package in Moodle or Canvas or Blackboard or whatever your LMS is. You can display a SCORM package, okay? So like for people who are like, well, I need this to be able to, what if we change our LMS? I need this to still work wherever we go next. That's when you think of SCORM as like a first thing. If you know you're going to be kind of like a rolling stone of LMSs, that makes a lot of sense. It's also what people have known, right? SCORM is a really old protocol that was developed a long time ago, and trainings have been on that for a long time. So if that's what your team or your directors are familiar with, that's a lot of times what they'll push. This is a relatively new thing. So sometimes you have to like make the sale with your team to switch over to this kind of tool and save money. But you know, directors always like that bottom line. So that save money part can be get some legs out of that argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Darla, I believe that there will be some announcements about where you can get the recordings when they're ready. So I would stay tuned to the Commons and the keynotes and whatnot for more information on that as we move forward. I do believe that our session has come to an end. I hope to meet you all in the social spaces and to see you at the, you know, subsequent sessions this noon. Everybody get out there and have a great time.
Thank you. I have a quick question. The next sessions, there's a Moodle for new users. Is that similar of what you did here? And then there's one for administrations. Should I see that one, or is the next session for new users go into a little bit more than what you just discussed?
I'm not sure because I didn't work. I think it's Amy that's doing that one.
It is Amy.
She's great. She's probably going to cover a lot of the same stuff, right? It says she's going to look at assignment, forum, book, quiz, lesson. So she's probably going to get a little bit deeper into how to add content. So if you feel pretty solid on that after what we went through today, I would definitely suggest administrator session if you're going to be an administrator.
Yes, I'm most likely just helping create courses. All right. All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a good session. We'll see you at the next one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Shalimar.
Bye.
Hey, and congratulations on being in remission.
Thank you. Yay.
Yeah, I've been in remission 16 years, so I know about losing the hair and all that good stuff. So been there, done that myself. So
It's rough. Glad it's over for both of us.
yes, ma'am.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.